Welcome to Decision 2020, the U.S. House of Representatives Candidate Forum. This is an opportunity for voters to hear directly from the candidates. Today, we turn our attention to the U.S. House of Representatives race in Michigan's 3rd Congressional District, where Democrat Hillary Scholten and Republican Peter Meijer are the only candidates in the race filling the seat held by independent Justin Amash. We continue Decision 2020, the U.S. House of Representatives Candidate Forum for Michigan's 3rd Congressional District. Today's forum was recorded Friday, October 9th from the studios of the Meijer Public Broadcast Center at Grand Valley State University. Joining us now is Democratic candidate Hillary Scholten from Grand Rapids. Hillary, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Patrick.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and why it is that you believe that serving in Congress is important.
You know, I, as a mom, a civil rights lawyer, a person of deep faith, everything that I care about is on the line in 2020. I didn't want to look back on this moment and realize that I didn't do everything I possibly could to improve the lives of people in my community. I was born and raised here. I'm raising my family here now too, my 2 sons. And every day I talk to people who are struggling to get by, who can't afford medication, who stretch out their medication, can't afford to go to the doctor and meet that month's rent. People who are concerned about the quality of their water, people who are deeply struggling financially with this economy in the wake of COVID-19. And I realized that everyday working people needed a representative who was truly from them in order to be for them. As a middle-class mom who has the experience and the empathy to lead West Michigan forward, I took a deep look at myself and realized, if not me, then who? And if not now, then when?
The big issue that's impacting the country right now is the coronavirus pandemic. So far this year, as a public health crisis, it's killed more than 210,000 Americans. It's impacting the economy, education, and society at large. In Congress, what steps would you promote stemming the spread of the disease and supporting the economy and our schools?
Yeah, right now we have to get this virus under control. We need leadership at the national level in order to do that. I don't think we need a standard one-size-fits-all response for the entire country, but we certainly need guidance on what the science tells us is safe. When you look at everything from gatherings in public places to school reopenings, there are measures that we can deliver on a national level, so each individual locality is not reinventing the wheel and doing the calculus for themselves. The federal government has to step up and provide resources to state and local governments for contact tracing, sufficient PPE equipment. We can't even begin to understand how to get this economy back on track until we've stopped this pandemic in its tracks. And, I say over and over again, the economic crisis is born of the healthcare crisis. We need people who are taking this seriously and are, setting the tone for stopping the spread. My opponents and the Republicans are currently attacking me in mail pieces for wearing a mask. We know that wearing a mask stops the spread, and it's crucially important that the rhetoric matches our actions on the ground. I also think, we need another round of stimulus. We have to get money into the hands of hardworking Americans who are struggling to pay their bills, especially those who are struggling with long-term unemployment. And as I mentioned, providing that crucial aid to our state and local governments who have borne a disproportionate burden of fighting this pandemic alone.
Well, with the pandemic impacting Americans' activities, what action should be taken ensuring that the presidential election is free, fair, and secure?
Well, I think increasing access to the ballot as much as we can. Here in Michigan, we've done tremendous work in making sure that folks can easily and safely vote when it's convenient and safe for them. On our campaign, we're making sure that we get that message out to folks. Absentee voting is underway already. You can safely and securely cast your ballot at a remote drop box location, still mail it in through USPS. And I think that we absolutely need to make sure that in this election and going forward, we are taking steps to ensure that the resources that we have here in Michigan, the access that we have here in Michigan, is available to everyone nationwide.
The Affordable Care Act has long been debated. What is the correct course for providing Americans with health care? Do you believe people with pre-existing conditions should be protected?
Absolutely. And I think that it's incumbent on the federal government to step in and provide that protection. We have seen what the case was before the Affordable Care Act, the law that protects people with pre-existing conditions. My opponent said he's going to do whatever it takes to repeal the Affordable Care Act and any efforts from the federal government to step in and further intervene when it comes to healthcare. But we know that it is a crucial role for our elected officials, the people who have won the public trust, to look out for their best interests and ensure that those individuals are not being cast aside. Many Republicans say, oh, we want to protect people with pre-existing conditions, but they don't have a plan to do so. And it's so crucial that folks understand the Affordable Care Act right now is the only thing standing between them and not having protections for people with pre-existing conditions. So I absolutely believe we need to protect the Affordable Care Act. Republicans in Congress and this Republican presidential administration have done everything they can to repeal that crucial protection. They're fighting right now in the Supreme Court to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And I believe that we should not only defend it, but continue to expand on those protections so we can make it more affordable, so we can increase those who have access to crucial health care.
President Donald Trump has made it a point to renegotiate trade deals. Some of the negotiating tactics include enacting tariffs. In your opinion, is the overall plan working? What job creation strategy or strategies would you support?
It's not working. I talk to folks every single day, whether they work on, the line at an auto manufacturer or another manufacturing plant, to farmers in the field who feel that, this escalating trade war has left the American worker, the American farmer, high and dry. Trump's America First policy and chaotic trade war has left America last and isolated when it comes to our international trading partners. More than anything, Americans right now want stability. Socially, economically, culturally, we want an individual who is willing to de-escalate and get America back on track, restore our credibility. I absolutely believe that we need to start bringing jobs, especially manufacturing jobs, back to the United States. We've seen in the middle of this pandemic, just the terrible consequences of being reliant on a foreign government for essential personal protective equipment, again, in the middle of a global health pandemic. I believe that we should institute a Buy American policy when it comes to our medical supplies and personal protective equipment. It would increase manufacturing jobs here in the United States. I'd fight with everything I have to make sure those jobs are getting sent right back here to Michigan's 3rd Congressional District. And additionally, be so important to reducing our reliance on a foreign government, especially one with which we're currently experiencing tensions in the middle of this health crisis or similar related crisis.
How would you address racial injustice and police brutality?
I've been very clear. I do not support defunding the police. I have represented far too many victims of domestic violence, seen firsthand the devastating consequences of gun violence in my own community. This past weekend, the city of Grand Rapids suffered its 27th homicide. Fortunately, the victim was a neighbor of mine and a friend. And that hits home deeply and personally. I absolutely believe that we need to address the issue of systemic racism in many different institutions throughout our community, one that is not unique to policing. However, we certainly need look no further than the events of this summer, the killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, to realize the deadly and devastating consequences that happen when racism seeps its way into policing tactics. I have worked alongside local law enforcement officials. I worked at the nation's top law enforcement agency. I understand how important it is that we have sensible and just criminal justice practices. And I think there are a number of areas for reform. I believe in instituting a national chokehold ban. I believe in creating additional mechanisms for oversight and reform. Something I'm in constant communication with our local law enforcement agents here, something they also welcome. It helps institute trust and keep officers safe as well. Something as simple as mandating body cams and dashboard cams. Having officers undergo de-escalation trainings. These are things that cost more money, not less. And I believe that we can equip our officers to help instill trust in the community and keep our communities safe through some of these very basic reforms. But I also deeply believe that it's so important that we address the other outlying social determinants of these disparities that we see. When we talk about criminal justice reform, I think of three different buckets: the courtroom, the cell block, and the community. When we talk about the courtroom, we're talking about, what are the unjust practices that we see in sentencing. I believe that we need to get rid of many of the crimes that require mandatory minimum sentencing, put the discretion back in the hands of the judges. When we talk about who gets sent to jail, I absolutely believe that we should not be sending nonviolent drug offenders to jail. There are alternatives that we can seek for rehabilitation and restoration when we're sentencing these individuals and holding them accountable for their crimes. When we look at the cell block, I think that we really need to look at what are some of those restorative programs that can help people rehabilitate when they're serving their time. At Ionia, we've got a great program run by Calvin University, the Calvin Prison Initiative, which gives individuals an opportunity to pursue their degree, which they can, a 2-year associate's, which they can continue to pursue to a full 4-year degree once they've been released. Gives them something to look forward to and continue to work towards once they're on the other side.
Hillary Scholten is back joining us. We ran out of the studio a little early on Friday, both of us, so we have our wardrobe change in order now, and let's just do a little bookkeeping here. We'll timestamp the show. We're recording this on Tuesday, October 13th from the Meyer Public Broadcast Center at Grand Valley State University. Hillary Scholten, you're back. Let's pick up the Q&A. This is for our online audiences. From cyber interference in democratic elections to the proliferation of nuclear weapons, what defense or national security measures are necessary for dealing with emboldened world leaders and terrorists targeting the United States?
When it comes to our foreign policy, it has never been more important that we elect leaders who know how to de-escalate, who know how to lead with a diplomacy first foreign policy. We have seen deteriorating status of the United States over these last 4 years. I know so many people are driven to me and my campaign because of the low ego, diplomacy first leadership style that I've exhibited throughout my career. And that's the same type of leadership that I'll lead with in Congress. We have to begin rebuilding our relationships around the globe.
How will you deal with special interest groups influencing policy in Washington?
I am a strong believer in campaign finance reform. I am endorsed by the group End Citizens United, which seeks as its primary purpose to get big money out of politics. I believe that we need publicly funded elections, not through taxpayer dollars, but through a public trust that comes from sanctions that paid by bad actors, that we can limit the extent to which individuals have to spend the majority of their time fundraising or cozying up to special interests or big donors, or that limit the class of people who can run for a seat like this. I'm a middle class mom. I understand how difficult it is to try to raise the kind of money that we need to get our message out. I'm not a self-funding candidate. I've had to raise all of this money myself. I've had so many people say to me, I wish I could do something like you're doing. I've got a lot of good ideas, but I could never raise the type of money that I would need to get this message out. And that's a shame. We need, more voices of hungry, eager leaders in our community. I also think that we can put temporal limits on our elections, like so many other countries do, to limit the time in which we campaign. That would also significantly limit the amount of influence that outside forces are able to leverage in our elections.
Do you or don't you believe that humans are significantly contributing to climate change?
I absolutely do, and the science is pretty conclusive around that.
West Michigan is known for its natural resources. Are there additional protections you believe are needed to protect our waters, our forests, and our farmlands?
Absolutely. I'm a big supporter of taking action specifically around the pollution of PFAS in our waters throughout. It's a big problem throughout Michigan, but especially here in Michigan's 3rd Congressional District. The bipartisan PFAS action plan, which was passed in the House of Representatives just last year, had a lot of great ideas in it. For one, empowering the Environmental Protection Agency to hold polluters accountable, so that addressing these toxins in our water isn't done on the backs of taxpayers. I was always taught growing up, if you make a mess, you've got to clean it up. That's true for my 10 and 8-year-old, as true for them as it is for corporate polluters in our waters.
Under what dire circumstance or government necessity would you be willing to support a tax increase?
I don't think we should be raising taxes, especially on the middle class. But I do think that we have taken the wrong direction in the past with dangerous tax cuts. The president's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act didn't do even close to what it promised. Added, $1 trillion to our deficit, with 83% of those benefits going to the top 1%. Didn't add the jobs that it said it would, and we're suffering the consequences deeply right now. I believe that we should roll back those tax cuts, secure tax cuts for the middle class, but we have to make sure that millionaires, billionaires, and corporations are paying their fair share.
There are economists who are concerned with growing wealth disparity as a threat to the country's future economic growth and prosperity. Do you concur, disagree? What is your opinion on this?
Look no further than the disparities that we see right here in West Michigan. We see it along class lines, along gender lines, along racial lines. And I come back to the fact that, we have a tax system that has significantly favored the wealthy and well-connected, who simply aren't paying their fair share in this country. It's, bankrupting our country, leaving us with a huge federal deficit. You want to get our spending under control, send a frugal Dutch mom to Congress. I know how to get it done. We cannot allow this to continue. And a huge way that we can address this is by making sure that we have a fair and just tax reform.
Should the nation be investing in alternative energy or rely on fossil fuels for securing energy independence?
It has never been more important that we invest in alternative energy sources. Not only is it imperative to address the climate crisis, but it presents incredible opportunity for economic growth. I am deeply hopeful to work on bringing manufacturing jobs in the green energy sector right here to West Michigan as one of my first orders of business as a representative.
Last question. Is there a moral or personal issue you support that is in opposition to your party's ideology? What is it, and why do you strongly adhere to your belief?
I was not born and raised a Democrat. In a lot of ways, sometimes I feel like an outsider looking in. I'm proud to be running as a Democrat in 2020 because I do believe that we need to be standing up for protecting healthcare, for defending the environment. But there are a lot of ways in which I diverge from my party and how to get it done. I don't support Medicare for all. I don't support the Green New Deal. I'm a practical, solution-oriented problem solver, and I'm ready to tackle the issues of lowering the cost of care, increasing comprehensive access to care, protecting people with pre-existing conditions, and coming up with comprehensive solutions to address the environment as well.
Democrat Hillary Scholten from Grand Rapids, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Patrick. Great to be here.